Mayor Bill de Blasio on Monday seemed like a candidate fighting hard to keep his job instead of one coasting to re-election. Dogged by questions about favors for donors, Mr. de Blasio found himself on a hot and delayed subway train with Senator Bernie Sanders, using the popular liberal from Vermont to rekindle a policy dispute with the governor. A bit earlier, the mayor had accepted the endorsement of another senator, Chuck Schumer of New York, at Grand Central Terminal, before heading over to Penn Station to meet Mr. Sanders, who came to the city to offer support for Mr. de Blasio, and immediately rode an A train with him, trailed by a gaggle of reporters. Hillary Clinton couldn't do it, Mr. Sanders quipped with satisfaction after successfully swiping his MetroCard, a reference to Mrs. Clinton's struggles at the subway turnstile during the 2016 campaign. "It's your New York soul coming out," the mayor replied, in reference to Mr. Sanders' Brooklyn roots, as the two climbed the stairs to the 34th Street platform. "Someone asked me about it the other day, and I said I missed the tokens." Mr. Sanders took heat in 2016 for suggesting tokens were still used on the city's trains. After their ride, the pair arrived at a campaign-style event in the glittering new Fulton Center, a shopping center and subway hub near Wall Street, surrounded by supportive unions and Democratic politicians. Mr. de Blasio pushed once again for a tax on wealthy New Yorkers to support transit spending and provide discounted rides to the poor. "You go outside and walk a few blocks away, you will see the offices of the millionaires and billionaires who dominate this nation," Mr. de Blasio said. "My friends, I know where the money is." Mr. Sanders, who was expected to hold an endorsement rally with Mr. de Blasio Monday night, said he supported the mayor's plan. But he said he did not intend to pick sides in a dispute over transit funding between Mr. de Blasio and Governor Andrew M. Cuomo, who has declared the mayor's tax hike a non-starter in the Republican-dominated state Senate. "I'm not taking sides, to be honest with you. I've got enough to keep me busy in Washington," said Mr. Sanders, adding he just thought the mayor's tax-the-rich plan was a good idea. "I think it's the right thing to do." Asked if he therefore thought Mr. Cuomo was wrong to support the idea of raising money for the subways by charging drivers more to enter high-traffic areas of the city, Mr. Sanders demurred. "I know you want to get me into a feud with the governor," Mr. Sanders said, drawing laughs. "We'll leave it be." Photo. Senator Sanders said at a news conference at Fulton Center in Manhattan that he endorsed the mayor's plan to use a new millionaire's tax to help pay for much-needed subway improvements. Credit Brian R. Smith for the New York Times. In a statement, Donnie Lever, a spokeswoman for the governor, called the funding tax politically popular but impossible to pass through Albany. "It's not a real alternative," she said. "It just sounds good." With a schedule full of marquee political names, Mr. de Blasio, a Democrat, appeared eager on Monday to put behind him days of uncomfortable questions about his closeness to a high-dollar donor who pleaded guilty to federal fraud and is cooperating with prosecutors in another case. The accusations fueled new rounds of negative headlines for the mayor and have animated the campaigns of his two main challengers, Assemblywoman Nicole Malliotakis, a Republican, and the independent candidate Bo Dietl, both of whom are expected to face Mr. de Blasio in a second and final debate on Wednesday. New York Today. Each morning, get the latest on New York businesses, arts, sports, dining, style and more. Sign up. See sample privacy policy opt-out or contact us anytime. The donor, Jonah S. Rechnitz, has been testifying for days in the corruption trial of a former union boss about his contacts with the mayor after making tens of thousands in contributions. Mr. de Blasio faced questions at two news conferences over the weekend, including one to directly address the claims by the donor, whom the mayor on Saturday repeatedly attacked as a liar and a felon. The mayor, who enjoyed a 40-point lead in polls early this month, has pointed out that the testimony involves accusations of pay-to-play activities by the de Blasio administration that investigators already looked into. No charges were brought against Mr. de Blasio or any of his staff. But questions about his contacts with Mr. Rechnitz, a young and wealthy real estate investor who testified that he had a direct line to the mayor after giving well over $100,000 to his campaign and political causes, shadowed Mr. de Blasio throughout the day. Mr. Schumer, a Democrat, declined to address several questions about whether the testimony weighed on his endorsement, which had been slated for Saturday but was rescheduled so that Mr. de Blasio could address the claims by Mr. Rechnitz. The mayor has done an outstanding job. He's answered questions on those issues, Senator Schumer said. I'm proud to endorse him. He then read a statement about the federal charges against President Trump's campaign manager, Paul Manafort, and left 8 minutes after arriving. Mr. Sanders, an independent, likewise did not respond when asked about the issue at a later news conference, instead inviting Mr. de Blasio to take the question. But by that point, Mr. de Blasio appeared to have been buoyed by the energy of his chaotic subway ride with Mr. Sanders, which included supportive hoots from riders, even though most of them were directed at the Vermont senator. The mayor endorsed Mrs. Clinton in 2016, but has since embraced Mr. Sanders. The mayor and Mr. Sanders experienced the full panoply of the subway circa 2017, a 10-minute delay for their train because of an earlier incident, the screeching of trains in the other direction, a duo who sang and rapped for the two politicians, a train car packed wall to wall. "Welcome to the A train, Bernie," a woman called out.